everyone. My name is Tim Seaton. I'm an aspiring motion graphics artist, and I want to start doing some tutorials on stuff I just like to do and like to learn. I'll be honest, I got a lot of this from Andrew Kramer from videocopilot.net. Shout out to him. So this is a beveled text he did called Fantasy Titles, and I have a little bit of my own spin on it. Gotta do a new comp. Control T to use the text tool in the display. Hit enter on the numpad when you're done entering the text. Control Alt Home will center the anchor point. Use the align panel to center it to the screen, and I give it an animation for the scale, spanning the first 7 seconds. Using the graph editor to adjust the keyframe interpolation. And then I'm going to give it an initial fade with the opacity. Ease that second keyframe. Just like that. We got ourselves a little animation. So I'm going to add a inner glow layer style because it's got certain attributes we need to take advantage of. Inner glow is usually a bright color. I'm going to darken it. Set the blend mode to normal. Set technique to precise. And at 7 seconds, the scale for my text is 100%. So I'm trying to find what size the inner glow needs to be. So at 14 over 100, that's a little less than a fifth. So I'm going to pick whip the size to that scale and just add this ratio, divide by 6, so that the size will follow the scale at a certain ratio. Now to do something about that transparent background, I just made an adjustment layer with a solid composite effect set to black. Guess I could have used a solid as the bottom layer, but whatever. I'm going to import something to use as an environment map for my metal. So I got a couple images I'm going to pre-compose. Set it to environment, put that in the top layer. And the effect that we're going to use is called CC Glass. Yeah. So this effect has a bump map setting, which is looking for a single image. And that image is a grayscale of our text on a black background. And I have 2 layers doing that. So I'll pre-compose that, call it displacement map. Back in the environment pre-comp, I'll set that to displacement map. There's our bevel. Inside displacement map is my text with the transparent background. So I pre-compose that in order to put it into a container that I can use in any composition. That way, any changes I need to make to the text is only one change in the text alpha pre-comp. And I'm going to use that text alpha in order to matte out my beveled text using a set matte effect to do that. The environment comp is just a container for some images, and one is using the glass effect. I'm going to give another instance to remove the glass effect in the set matte and add a compound blur, which requires another image. So I'm importing some textures. Going to give me a couple options and put them in a pre-comp. So whichever one is showing in this pre-comp, that's the one the compound blur is going to use. I'm setting them to the frame size, and then using the setting for this compound blur to set it to the texture. It gives you a nice effect. Now to give some more texture to the metal, I'm going to do a compound blur for the beveled text. Now the CC glass effect has some shading, which is giving it some lighting effects. I'm going to take those out, but with the ambient at 100%. Now, the only thing that effect is doing is displacing the environment. So I'm going to duplicate that CC glass effect by selecting it and Control D, put it under the compound blur. I need to match the surface settings. Softness at 0, height at 100, but let's take the displacement to 0. This is just going to be lighting. And I'm going to use After Effects lighting. That way I can create lights in the scene. At the top of the display, there's a lock icon so that that panel doesn't move. And you can use the hierarchy to open up other views. And I lock both displays so I can see the finished look with the displacement map. I'm going to make some adjustments. The CC glass effects need to soften up a little bit. And in the displacement map, I'll have a curves effect to the adjustment layer. Changing the grayscale levels actually affect the geometry of the glass effect. I'm going to add a new solid, give it a fractal noise, and set the blending mode to darken. And it does just what it says. It darkens the bright spots of the highlights in the grayscale image, which affect the geometry. But there's a problem. The dents don't animate with the text. So there's a setting in the fractal noise that needs to animate with the scale of the text in text alpha. I need to display both timelines in order to pick whip the scale of the fractal noise transform to the text scale. The ratio is a little off. I need to add something. I just kind of played around with it. Increasing the brightness of the fractal noise will darken it at higher values so the dents will be less deep. I affect the opacity to make it look a little less corroded, or I guess dinged up. And then I duplicate the layer to give some variation. Looking at the final result, the opacity fade for the text is not working. I'm just going to take it out. All right. In order to just change it up a little bit, I'll go to my environment container, switch out what image is showing. Select that second image, Control-Alt-Shift-H sets it to the frame width. Gives us a whole new look in the main composition. And then the rest is just making little adjustments to the lighting, giving some smoke. The motion tile effect added to the beveled text will tile the image being beveled, giving it more highlights. Once we adjust the tile width and height. and then animate the tile's center. The purpose of that is to make the reflection of the text look like it's moving. In just a sec, you'll see the smoke I created. That's a fractal noise added to a new solid. Scaled up, set to lighten or some blending mode. There's a mask with a feathering effect, keeping it from appearing in the middle, and it's expanding, and I animated the rotation and the evolution.